honor to introduce Dr. Anita Archer this morning. So you can't hear me? Oh my. Can you hear this? Is this on? Can you turn the volume up? How about now? How about now? How about now? How about that volume? And Crystal Hill run an AV setup in the back. Hey, good morning. Nothing at all? Oh, there it is. Okay, good. All right, how's this? Now you can hear me, right? So now that we're all settled, and I'll do your attention again up here at the front. So first of all, I'm looking around the room and I'm noticing some friends of mine from Idaho counties who are here visiting, it looks like, to hear Dr. Archer. So that's wonderful to have them. So quick round of applause. Thank you for visiting us today. I want to thank all of you for your hard work yesterday. I know in our session we had a lot of engagement, saw lots of great things going on yesterday about planning for next school year, and I just like the energy that we have. And so now I would like to introduce Dr. Anita Archer. So I got to see Dr. Archer at the RTI Innovations Conference last year.
Conference.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go ahead and admit that I'm probably a hard person to engage. Okay? Right? I don't know if you are like that. Sometimes you go to some... Dr. Archer did the closing keynote at a week-long conference and had me engaged just like that. She talks about literacy, content. She's been in elementary, middle school, high school? High school?
I do demonstrations
Yeah,
in high
I
school.
thought you did, but I knew you worked as an elementary, middle school educator. And I'm just pleased to have her. It's very rare that we get someone with this level of experience here in our school system. So I'm just really pleased to introduce her. So Dr. Archer, thank you for being here.
Okay, give me 1 minute. So I can look at the... Can you hear my voice? Yes, probably we might not be a mic, but we'll try it anyway. Okay. Good. All right. Excellent. So, the last 3 days I have been, or 3 days, I have been in 3 locations. One was at the Oregon coast on holiday, and I went on a 6-mile hike up a hill and down, and injured my foot. So if I don't run up and down the steps as much as I usually do, darn. But then I flew immediately to Las Vegas for a conference. You had to walk through the casino to get to the rooms. That was an interesting experience. And now I'm in North Carolina, which is a beautiful state that I've been in before. And so I just said, oh my goodness, so many wonderful opportunities in the United States. But there is a similarity in that, raise your hand if you work with children. Okay, that's just to prove that you're in the right place. So in the last year, I've had demonstration opportunities in many places. So I did demonstration lessons in Oregon, we're my home state, but also in the state of Washington. And for a middle school grant that I'm working on in Michigan, a elementary grant that I'm working on in New York City. And just to put this in perspective, they have 1,400 schools. Your county has 40. And so a little harder to get them to turn around. But what I noticed was that no matter where I was, there were some children that were not like riveted to my every word. And raise your hand if you've ever experienced lack of rivet. And I was teaching children really enlightening concepts, really enlightening strategies, and I noticed a lack of enlightenment. And raise your hand if you've ever had lack of enlightenment. What we are going to look at today is instruction, but we also know that connected with that is an optimum amount of active participation. that good instruction, whether it's elementary or secondary, is interactive. I say something, you say something, I write something, you write something, I do something, you do something, I say something, you say something. It never can be. I say something, I say something, I say something, I say something, I say something. See you tomorrow. Raise your hand if your kids would check out under those circumstances. And see, I believe that in a summer institute, that even your thoughts could go somewhere else. Some of them already have. So here's what we're going to do. When answers are very short, we'll say the answers together. I'll ask a question, I'll put up my hand. This says think, do not blurt. And when I lower my hands right there, you'll say the answer. For example, what day of the week is it, everyone? It is Wednesday. Okay. Some of you needed more thinking time. All right. And sometimes we're going to have you say your answers with partners. And so, let me model here. You're number one, partner number two. Now here we have an odd number, but ooh, look around, another odd person. Ask him to join you, and then you have an even number. And so, everybody get a partner. If you cannot get a partner, form a triad, the middle person being a one, the other two being twos. Everybody all the way back, even the people standing in the back, like the assistant superintendent, needs a partner. All right, okay. Great. Okay, turn and stare at your partner. Raise your hand if your number is 1. And raise your hand if you're a 2. I'm watching that group over there. Raise your hand if you're a 1. Raise your hand if you're a 2. You cannot be both. Raise your hand if you're a 1. Raise your hand if you're a 1. Oh, caught you. All right. That's just an alertness check. Okay. So, here you are really looking at the quality of instruction that is in your elementary, your middle school, your high schools, and I totally applaud that, because in the end, the only thing that makes a difference in a school district is the quality of instruction that is offered on a daily basis. And so, let me just see if there we have it. So you have a handout. Check your partner to see if they have it out and visible to them. Okay, and Assistant Sue, would you please do this? Would you grab the extra handouts and walk down the aisle and pass them out to people who don't have one? Okay, so looking up here, first of all, I think that it is terribly critical that we remember that our whole purpose, everything that we do in the classroom, everything that our schools should be looking at has one goal, and that is what, everyone? Learning. And more, what, everyone? Learning, and more, learning, and more, learning, and more, learning, and more, learning. And I start there because of a movement that I see across the United States where there is an emphasis more on activities than on learning. I'm going to use a middle school example. So 2 years ago, I dropped into a language arts class in Wichita, Kansas, 8th grade English class at the end of the year. And I went into the classroom, and all the students were totally on task. They all had in front of them a piece of poster board and were working on a poster. They had seen the movie Unbroken, and they had also read the book Unbroken, and now they were to make a poster showing how they were the same and different. And so I went around and asked them, so what are you working on today? And these were the kind of answers I got. Well, I am working on adding a better border to my poster. I'm going to add more color to it and make it really pop out at that gallery walk. And what are you working on? Well, I didn't have enough pencils here yesterday, but I borrowed some markers, and now I'm going to add more color to it. And what are you working on? Well, we have to do it by hand, but I'm going to make the fonts look different between same and different. And then I follow the teacher around. Ooh, excellent border. I like the way you've added that. Ooh, that's really popping out there. Thank goodness you got some more markers. The fonts really make that stand out. And the whole purpose for the kids was making a beautiful poster for the walk. But then when I read their comparisons, many of their comparisons were literally irrelevant. In the movie, there were blue birds. In the book, they were black. This is like irrelevant. So I asked the teacher, what kind of background did you give them so that they would be focused on really learning? Did you tell them that the book comes before the movie? That someone read the book and said, this would make a great movie, but we're going to have to make some alterations in it. Maybe we're going to have to change the plot a little bit, change one section of the book we're going to leave out altogether. Maybe we're going to focus on this attribute of the character and make more of it in the movie. She said, well, really, we didn't do that. Okay, so next year. But see, there is a difference between having on-task behavior in an activity and on-task behavior with learning. And this is something that we really have to guard against. It's just like if I was a corporate president, my goal would be profits. If I am a teacher, if I am a coach, if I am a principal, if I'm assistant principal, there's only one outcome that is worth our attention, and it is learning with a bigger voice. Learning. Because I was just introduced to what we would do if I was in a Southern Baptist church. First of all, I would sit in the last row. This is what the assistant principals back there told me. And at 12 o'clock, you would slip out quickly. And you would say things enthusiastically. Okay. Now, let's just look at some reviews of research that are helpful. One of my favorite authors is Dylan Wiliam. I put my favorite books up there that I've read in the last 2 years, just in case you're looking for something to take to the shore and sit on the beach and read. Okay, it would be good. Anyway, so Dylan Wiliam wrote a good book called Embedded Formative Assessment. You can just tell from the name it is a page turner. Embedded Formative Assessment. But he looked at quality instruction this way, and please read it with me and go. The quality of teachers is the single most important factor in the educational system. And I read this and I said to myself, I've often done this. We have talked about it being the quality of the teachers, personifying it as a teacher. But it is not the teacher, it is the skills that the teacher utilizes that makes the difference. It's like if you go to a surgeon, it is not the quality of the person, the surgeon, it is the quality of their surgery that makes the difference. And so I look at it this way, that there is like a big basket out there of research-validated practices that make a significant difference in terms of student learning that we need to take and utilize every day. In fact, this is our job as educators, is to constantly add and use, not just know, but use those things that we know make a difference. This is my 50th year of teaching. Raise your hand if you can beat that. But just in the last few months, I've added a number of things to my repertoire that are highly researched, and that is our job. So I sort of reworded it without his permission. Excuse me, Dylan. But everybody, reading the reworded one and go. The quality of teaching is the most important factor in the educational system. It is the quality of teaching that we need to monitor constantly, personally as a teacher, and administrators and coaches constantly at our school site. Well, similar to this is a study that I think really points this out, because it was a longitudinal study meant to look at what is the power of teachers in terms of their teaching. So it was a study that was done in Connecticut, and they followed children for 6 years. And this is just the data from second grade of students who started at the 50th percentile. And those teachers who had the gift, of those students who had the gift of having 3 teachers in a row that were what we might call value added, that consistently brought the best outcomes to their students, the students ended up at the 90th percentile. But if the student happened to have 3 teachers in a row who did not have that kind of value-added teaching in their classrooms, they ended up at the 37th percentile. And if that was your own child, would you want them to be at the 90th percentile or the 37th, everyone? The 90th. And it is the quality of teaching, not just the teacher, but the quality of teaching that led to that outcome. Well, just another way of doing this, because some people like graphics. Ooh. So this is the same information in a graphic form, very pretty. Okay, moving on. So if we were to talk about your own district, your own county district, go to the reworded one, and I'm going to read when I stop, say the next word. The quality of an education system cannot exceed the quality of the teaching. So basically, if someone was to look down at your school district and say, what is the quality of it? It's only one measure. It is the quality of teaching that then influences the quality of learning. Well, I am certain that many of you are totally aware of the work of John Hattie. Raise your hand if that name seems to be familiar, John Hattie. John Hattie actually has done a gift to us. He's not a researcher in terms of original research, but he is a great researcher in terms of summarizing research. John Hattie was in New Zealand, now he is in Australia, where I spend about 2 months a year in Australia doing teacher training. But he was educated at the University of Washington, which, though I was a professor there, I didn't ever have him as a student, or I would take total credit for his work. So what he said was this, is that he has reviewed now with his team 1,800 meta-analysis in education to see what is sort of the holy grail, what makes the most difference. If you look at this, see, okay, they lent me a clicker, but it has no laser at the moment. Okay, did you see it?
It is there.
Okay, so I need someone to help me out on that because I cannot teach without a laser. I'd have to go home to Oregon. Okay, so looking down here at reverse effects, it goes from 0 to 1, and in the middle is 0.40, which is at the point where it's statistically significant that it would make a difference. But reverse effects, for example, one reverse effects is retention. We have good data to show that retention has a negative impact on student learning. And so that anything you can do, I don't know, does North Carolina have an automatic retention law? Well, I would, no, you don't know. You would know this if you did. And when it comes up to your, because it's gone through the country again and again. So, but, okay, so can you put this advancer in it? Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate it.
I'll take the other.
Okay, you can have it. Okay, see, now I can stay because for a moment there, it was tentative. But if you don't have it across our country, because there's sort of a boilerplate retention law that's gone from state to state to state to state, but it's really a very difficult one. Like this year, it was passed in 2 states, one of them I'm working in, which is Michigan, and the boilerplate says you take a state test and you only don't pass at a certain level, you'll be automatically retained, even though it has a reverse impact on children, and no teacher input will change it. So that one, I mean, I'm really suggesting you just keep your eyes open, your own legislature, to be certain it doesn't sneak in, because it's devastating for you. Anyway, but looking over here, this means that there's developmental effects if you're a year older, and just general teacher effects. But these are the things that make a significant difference. For example, teacher-student relationships have a 0.72 effect size. So it's a major effect size in terms of students. Do we greet the kids at the door? Do we smile at them? Do we know what their interests are? Do we talk to them? Do we meet them in the hall? When we're walking down the hall and see someone who's giving us trouble, do we not turn to the right and go another direction, but actually smile at them? That teacher-student relationship. So here you are at a conference that is looking at multiple support systems for children, and response to intervention has an extraordinarily high effect size when implemented at a high level. So that sort of gives credence to why you're like here for 4 days. Utilizing interventions for students with learning disabilities, research-validated programs, has a very high effect size, and interventions for other students with disabilities, a very high effect size. So in other words, good that you're gathering along this topic. But let's just look at every day in every class, whether it is general ed, whether it is special ed, whether it is classes for students that are English language learners, which I've learned we have some. What should we be looking at? Now this is the data that was put out in December of 2016. So it's the ripest data from John Hattie. And so if I was a principal, these are the things I'd be looking for. If I'm a coach, these would be what I'd be looking for. If I was a teacher, these would be what I would be doing every day, every period for eternity. Number one, it appears that the more kids are on task, the more that they will learn. Oh, what a shocker that one is. True? But it is a measurable item. I can go into a class and I can measure on-task behavior and have a pretty darn good predictor of the learning within that class. And basically, the quality of instruction gets the highest effect size. So that the quality of instruction with all of the variables we're going to look at makes a significant difference. And the quality of instruction. Now this one is critical because it appears that children learn more from like teaching than doing independent work. Now this should not surprise us either because is it possible children are more on task during instruction than they are during independent work? Is that possible even here in North Carolina? And so it makes a difference. So the quality and quantity of instruction. And also, how direct is that and is there explicit instruction has a very high effect size. And that we tell students the lessons, what everyone? Goal. Now raise your hand if you've heard many times that it would be helpful to tell kids the goal of the lesson. John, in that corner too, raise your hands. Okay, let's try it again, okay. See, this is a case of it's not that we don't know it, it is just not consistently doing it. And isn't that the problem with life? One day I was sitting in my kitchen in Portland with a goddaughter, we were having tea, and she looked up at the bookcase in my kitchen, and she said, Anita, it looks like you have every diet book that's ever been written. And I said, yes, and I've read them. Is that not the challenge, right? So we know that telling kids the goal is informative to the students and informative to the teacher also. And I want you to put a star on your handout next to teacher clarity. And so that the actual clarity of the directions, the clarity of the instruction, the clarity of the assignments make a significant difference in terms of student attainment. All of these are measured in terms of attainment academically. And so we need to work on, did the students understand? Is my instruction very clear, concise, and so that the students will get it? And then asking the students, what, everyone? Questions. Look at the high effect size of questions. Raise your hand if you've ever asked children a question. This proves that you really are an educator. Okay, good. But one of the things that we have been really looking at in terms of research is what kind of questions. Because in the past we told teachers, well, when you read something, ask children questions that will connect it to their own personal experience. Or to the situation in the world, and then also connect them to the text. And in fact, we spent years telling teachers this until we did like research and found it was not like a good idea. Because when we ask questions that connect them personally, often it takes them out of the content and reduces their comprehension. It doesn't increase it. So you've been working on text-dependent questions. Raise your hand if that's not familiar to you. Okay, and once tell your partner what are text-dependent questions and go. Okay, fall silent. So I heard one answer that was succinct and right on. Text-dependent questions are questions for which the answers are dependent on the text. Woo-woo. All right. But as a simple thing, But in fact, we put a lot of energy asking questions to connect them to their own experience. The problem with that, it takes all their cognition out of the text and reduces comprehension. One day I was sitting up in New Jersey and a 5th grade class, and the students were reading a story about a family that went to Idaho for rapid kayaking. The teacher, they had read a little bit of the story, and the teacher stopped and said, "Have any of you had a similar experience?" And luckily we were videoing it because it was like so perfect. And so a child raised his hand and said, "You know, we live out at the lake and we have kayaks and we enjoy kayaking." The next child raised his hand and said, "You know, we live right next door and we have kayaks, but they have singles, we have doubles." Next child raises her hand, "We live at the lake, but we don't have kayaks. We went with canoes because you could take visitors with you." Next child raises her hand and said, "We live at the shore, not at the lake, but we have kayaks, but they're a lot longer to handle the waves." Next child raises her hand and said, "I've never been in a kayak or a canoe, but last summer my grandparents took us to New York City, and we took a boat tour up the Hudson that was an architectural tour that they pointed out the different buildings." And as if to like wrap it up, the last child said, "Well, I've never been in a boat, small or large, but in our living room we have an oil painting of a sailboat." Is it possible they have forgotten everything about the trip to do rapid kayaking in Idaho? Yes or no? Yes. So whether I ask questions on a lecture that I'm giving in high school, or I am reading informational text with middle school students, or a narrative with elementary students, I want to ask questions that keep you in the text, not out of the text. Get your hand ready, everybody. In the text, not out of the text. But not all of you joined us, and I saw you. So, everybody, in the text, not out of the text. In the text, not out of the text. But here, let me just tell you something for all of the roles that you're in. We often ask teachers to do something, but we don't give them the rationale that makes them do it. And so they say, "Oh, we're just going to ask text-dependent questions." But there's a rationale that keeps your cognition in the content. It doesn't take it out of the content, thus it improves your comprehension. Well, what else has the research said? One, that we could have a class discussion. Look at the high effect size of class discussions when done right. But not always are they done right, because we actually have data to show that often very few children enter class discussions. In fact, it's totally predictable. We did a study where we asked teachers in middle school, name the 3 children that would always join in a discussion. And the teachers were able to go boom, 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 right away with the 3. So we know that if they plan before the discussion, if they share with their partner before the discussion, if they are in small groups rather than a large group, they're more likely to participate. So we know what can heighten something such as discussions. And I want you to put a star next to feedback. Feedback is one of the major elements, look again, high effect size 7.3, that all teachers should be considering, particularly feedback in real time. So I'm teaching math and I say, write this equation down, solve it, and I give you, what everyone? Feedback. I am a 2nd grade teacher and I do spelling dictation. I say, write this word on your slate, your whiteboard, hold it up, and then I give feedback. I'm teaching a small group in reading, and you mispronounce a word, and I'm going to give feedback. So feedback is a constant that we need to do, and it is at the very center of learning for our kids. Mastery learning, 0.57. This is one that I have deep concern about, because it appears as I visit classes in schools that we're exposing children to lots of information, but we don't necessarily take it to the point of automaticity. And thus, we have a lot of children that are overexposed and underdeveloped. It's a good line, you can use it, overexposed and underdeveloped. And there's some things you just have to have at automaticity. You have to read with appropriate rate. You have to be able to spell with automaticity if you want the kids to focus on the writing product. They need to have math facts so that when they're in high school, I was teaching, taught many lessons recently in high school, algebra and geometry and trig. I recently got to teach the concept of polynomials. Oh my God. Raise your head if you're a math teacher. It was so good. I was working with kids on solving equations in 8th grade. And one student, they had to figure out what was 5 times 8. And I went over and this child's making little dots and counting them. I'm concerned about that child. They're not going to be passing like algebra because they don't have automaticity on numeracy or automaticity on facts. So we really have to look at foundation skills in every area. The research in writing shows that if you do not have automaticity in handwriting, automaticity in typing, automaticity in spelling, automaticity in punctuation, that it is going to reduce significantly the quality of your writing. And we might need to add some, what everyone, some scaffolding. And so the goal is here, the child is here, and we need to lift them up to that scaffolding. And scaffolding is great, but it's not great if we don't have gradual release of responsibility. If we use that scaffolding way beyond the necessity, then the students don't have to retrieve it on their own. And retrieval practice, put a star next to retrieval practice. And retrieval practice means that students have to retrieve information and they have to do it in a way that they are not scaffolded. They have to do it from memory. And this is a challenge because the research actually shows through high school that most of the kind of review practice that we give is highly scaffolded. And so we want to have the students retrieve it. So over the course of these 2 days, I'll emphasize that. And this one, put a huge star next to it. Space versus mass practice. And all of us know this from our university experiences in terms of what we were taught. But it's one that we really have to look for in terms of our teaching, in terms of the curriculum that we're using. So this research basically says that if all of the practice is massed in one segment and is not spaced out over time, that the results are significantly different. In fact, the recent research on this shows that you can double students' gains, double students' gains in math with spaced versus mass practice. And double, raise your head if you like that sound. Okay, but that means that we have to look at our curriculum and say, okay, I've introduced this in math, and 3 days later I have 2 more problems that review that, and a week later we have 2 more problems, and a month later we have 2 more problems, and that is what leads to retention. Our brains really need that spaced practice in order for us to have retention. So, in other words, we get a list, most of which all of us are familiar with, but a list of things that have very high effect sizes in terms of quality instruction